Before we even get to our review of Captain Marvel, I feel like I owe it to Brienne to allow her to rant for a quick second about a little thing called Nick Fury's eyeballs. So, Brienne, what'd you think about that?
Yeah, so since I watched Endgame, the very first superhero movie I ever watched, right? He has an eye patch over, I don't even remember which eye, but he has an eye patch, right? And the first thing that I asked was, hey, David, how did he get his eye patch? And he was like, I think they reveal it in the Captain Marvel movie, but he hadn't seen it yet. And I was like, okay, so he can't answer that question for me, right? So we've watched all of these movies. We are in the home stretch. We have almost made it to the end. We make it to Captain Marvel, watching the movie, and finally it gets to the part where they're going to reveal how he got his eye patch. I thought it was going to be some epic scene of some sort, you know, like he's battling, fighting, something. I don't know, because no one else has an eye patch. I was like, okay, it's going to be something cool. It's a Marvel movie, right? No. He got scratched in the eyeball with a cat. A cat? Really?
It's a cat with some awesome tentacles, okay? That come out of its mouth.
I don't care what kind of cat it is. You just got scratched in the eyeball with a cat, and that is why you have an eye patch. Like, really?
Yeah.
You know what that feels like? That feels like they're like, well, we gave him an eye patch, and I don't really know how that happened, so let's just make him get scratched by a cat. Like, it was like a last-minute decision. They didn't want to think it through and give a cool idea. They're like, oh, man, we got to fit it in within a few seconds. Let the cat scratch him.
Yeah, so for those of y'all who've never watched any of these videos, Brienne is entirely new to superhero movies. I have seen most of them. I had actually seen all the Marvel movies except for Black Panther and Captain Marvel. But as of this video, I can proudly tell you I have seen all of the Marvel movies. Brienne, however, she'd seen none of them, and so we started her off with Endgame. If you're going to comment about it, you don't have to. People have already gotten on to me about it. I really don't care. It was cool to see her fresh take without it. And then we've been going back and we've been watching all the Marvel movies except for Incredible Hulk and Thor: The Dark World. Incredible Hulk because it wasn't on Disney Plus. Thor: The Dark World because it sucks. But we finally got to Captain Marvel, and I had not seen it, but I had heard about the cat, and I had heard about him losing his eyeball in it, and I knew that was going to happen, and it was actually funny because literally ever since we saw Endgame, that was like one of the first questions when we watched that movie. She was like, whoa, how did this guy lose his eyeball? And at this point, you know, I'd already heard about the eyeball thing, and I was like, oh man, we got a long build up till we get there, right? Because I hadn't even seen the scene, but I knew about the cat. Fast forward to us actually sitting down and watching Captain Marvel, right? Dozens and dozens of movies later, she's asked about this eye patch multiple times. And we get into the Captain Marvel movie. And we're just about maybe an hour in or something like that. And they keep featuring this orange cat. And she keeps looking over at me and she's like, what's the importance of this cat? They keep focusing on it a whole bunch. Like, is that a hidden, like, is that one of the scrolls? Is that hidden or something?
I thought someone was going to morph and they morphed into a cat.
Yeah, and I told her, I was like, I know something important about the cat, but I can't tell you. And it was the best payoff because she's been wondering about the eye patch. She was wondering about the cat. And it turns out that the cat led to the eye patch, and then she's disappointed by it.
Yeah, both are disappointed.
Yeah, I'm actually really disappointed by it too. But that being said, let's not let our disappointment affect the entire movie. Brienne, what did you think about Captain Marvel?
Yeah, it was better than I thought it was going to be. Going into it, I was skeptical because I thought it was going to be like a really big like feminist movie, and I was like, do I really want to sit through like an hour and a half, almost 2 hours of this? But it wasn't. It was okay. It was not my favorite, definitely. It wasn't really even at the top. I didn't really think it would rank super high. But my parents, they watched it yesterday, and my dad said that it's one of his like favorite Marvel movies. So I was like, okay, I can go in with a little bit of like higher expectations. Didn't meet those expectations, but it was better than what I expected. It was like in the middle.
Yeah, we were at her house yesterday, and her parents had just watched Captain Marvel, and her dad had seen it multiple times.
Yeah.
Her mom had not seen it, and then they came in, they were like, best movie ever, that was amazing, probably one of the best Marvel movies. I hadn't seen it. I was like, I was skeptical for the same reason as you, because I'd seen all the trailers for the movie, and I just got kind of concerned, because I thought they were just going to be pushing this thing to where it was just over the top, like, women, which I'm fine with women being heroes. Just don't like hit me over the head with it. But I remember in the trailers, every time there was like this one gimmick that I was fine with it for the first trailer, but then they did it for every trailer that followed. And it said something about like her, right? And then like what it would do is that like the O would like fade in, so it said her and then the word her would turn into hero.
Oh.
And I was like, for the first, for the first trailer, I was like, oh, that's funny. And then they did it every trailer. I was like, oh, is it gonna be one of those movies?
Yeah.
And in all honesty, I think that's one of the things that kept me out of the theater because I thought it was gonna be like that. And Brie Larson, the actress who played her, I think she's kind of known for being that way.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of interviews with her, and she doesn't come across the best way. And so it just didn't really incline me to go see that movie.
Yeah.
But having watched the movie, I'd agree it was actually a pretty decent movie. I don't know if I'd agree with your parents in saying it was one of the best ever.
I wouldn't.
But I went in very skeptical and came out thinking that was actually a pretty decent film.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was better than expected. Yeah. So what did you think about the I don't even know what to talk about it because it's easier for me to talk to her about movies whenever I've seen them multiple times because then I'm like, oh, this is something to talk about.
Yeah.
But in the movie, there were different things I was thinking of. I was like, oh, okay, like the Nick Fury, right? Obviously, Nick Fury's in this. Agent Coulson's in this. You didn't really remember who Agent Coulson was because he goes all the way back to Avengers, and they have this whole show called Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which you did ask about in the movie because they kept saying Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and she was like, oh, is that TV show as a result of this? And I'm like, no. It actually preceded this show. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. actually started pretty early on in the whole MCU days. But what do you think about the whole de-aging thing they did?
Oh, yeah. It was like very convincing. You definitely couldn't tell that it was CGI. It looked really good, so.
Yeah, I mean, given that we've seen some stuff, I mean, lately I feel bad. Like, all the shows we've been watching, we've just been, like, bagging on the CGI.
Yeah, Black Panther.
Yeah, Black Panther, Wonder Woman. Everything we've been watching, we're just like, oh, the CGI was terrible.
This one's good.
Yeah, I think they did a pretty good job with the CGI. Where I don't know, it's kind of mind blowing to think that we've got technology like that where we can take Samuel L. Jackson and just like de-age him to where he just looks like a young Sam Jackson just walking around like Nick Fury, and I was like, wow, it's actually pretty neat. I don't know, I just while I was watching the show, it actually almost took me out of the show for another reason. A lot of times I'm taken out of the show because the CGI is so bad, but this time I was taken out of it. Because it was so good, and I was like, wow, it's so crazy to think that this is like an older actor who has been de-aged, and they've done that a few times. I think they're going to do that again in Ant-Man, but as I was watching, I was like, wow, the CGI, super good.
Yeah.
Very impressed. What do you think about just the plot in general?
Yeah, it was kind of more like sci-fi, I think, than some of the other Marvel movies, which is not necessarily my, like, cup of tea. I'm not really into that as much, so... It wasn't that it was a bad plot. I think it just wasn't necessarily my taste in a movie. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that because I mainly, if it is going to be a sci-fi movie, I like it to be like a gradual introduction to it. Maybe the one exception to that is like Man of Steel, and that's because I mean that one it has to start off on Krypton blowing up because. That's how the Superman story starts out.
Right.
But then it gets grounded and kind of just builds up again. And that's why like my favorite Marvel movies are the ones that start off grounded and then just begin building up.
Yeah.
So you go back to like Iron Man. It's just like this billionaire guy who sells weapons, and then out of like a dire situation, he has to build this armor, and then like it just expands, right? And then you have like Captain America. He's just a soldier. He gets injected with a serum, becomes like a super soldier, and then like it gradually builds up. Then you have Spider-Man, right? Very simple guy. He's just a kid. Bit by a radioactive spider, turns into Spider-Man. Right? I like those ones. Whereas this one, and I did enjoy the movie, but literally from like the first scene, you're like up in space, you're like, oh, what's going on?
Yeah.
I thought Guardians of the Galaxy did it well. But even then, I would say almost in those movies it always immediately like kind of goes a little bit lower for me just because I'm not like this huge sci-fi person.
Agreed.
It's weird. I mean, like a lot of the shows, the movies we like review and stuff on here are sci-fi, but I think that's just more testament to our culture nowadays that seems to be the more popular movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not usually the biggest sci-fi person, so for the first like maybe 10 or 15 minutes of this movie, I did not think it was going to be my type of movie because.
I agree.
It was kind of just like, oh, wow, this is... I honestly, I also didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
Which, I got nervous because I was like, oh, is it like a Wonder Woman
Part
1984
two,
thing? Because if you didn't watch our Wonder Woman 1984 thing, we were just like... We were totally confused that entire movie. Like, we were looking forward to that one a whole lot, and we just could not put together the plot. We were so confused, and I've watched other reviews since then, and it turns out we're not dumb. everybody's confused about what happened in that movie.
Yeah.
But 15 minutes into Captain Marvel, I was like, oh, is it going to be the same thing? But it turns out it was intentionally confusing. Yeah. Because the whole thing was like she'd lost her memory, and like there were little things like being planted in there, like to try to confuse you and make it a mystery to where eventually you realize, oh, it turns out the Skrulls are the good guys, the Krees are the bad guys.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, good. Like that was reassuring. I think I just for the first 15 minutes had a little bit of PTSD because literally the last movie we watched was Wonder Woman 1984, and I was like, oh no, is this going to be another one that's just so poorly explained? I have no idea what's going on the entire movie because I don't know if I'm mentally prepared for that.
Yeah.
But luckily it wasn't. That was all intentional, and so I don't know who directed this movie, but good job for you. Good job to the script writers, all that. Like y'all planted it for a good reason, and so the first 15 minutes I wasn't the biggest fan, but then very quickly it got a lot better. Like once they came down to Earth, I was like, all right. Now I'm good. And then once they built back up, it's like, okay, I'm tracking with you. So is there anything specific you want to mention about this movie that you just thought stood out to you a whole lot? Or anything, like maybe, I don't know, whenever you're moving forward, what's your biggest takeaway from this movie?
I will say that I liked the idea of using the Skrulls, because it was kind of cool going throughout the movie trying to like pick out like, oh, I think that one's like hiding as this person. I think that one's undercover, and so that was kind of fun. I enjoyed that part.
Whenever she just comes in and like punches the grandma on the train.
Yeah, that was crazy.
One more thing I just want to mention is what I think was probably the lamest line of the entire movie. It's whenever she's talking to, I don't even know what it is. Like when they're in like little like, I guess like holographic world, you know what I mean? Whenever like there's like the rippling water and like the like I don't know, and she's talking to the person she admires most or whatever. I still didn't fully grasp what that whole thing was. Yeah. I got the point of it. I just didn't get like how that worked. But she's like talking, and it's whenever she's like actually unveiling her true power, and they're saying like your name is Veers because. You know, it's like Carol Danvers on her thing, and like whenever it exploded, it just said Veers, and so like we're gonna call her by her last 4 letters. I was like, oh, that. The whole time, to be fair, I was wondering why did they call her Veers. Well, it's because it's the last 4 letters of her last name, Carol Danvers, and they're like Veers. I was like, okay, that's kind of cheesy, but the climax of this whole thing is whenever she's like ripping off the stuff and like unveiling her true power, she looks, and I looked at Brienne, and I was totally joking. I said, my name is Carol. And then she said it in the movie. And I was like, oh, I was totally joking. Like, I just thought that was a really lame line. Like, my name is Carol. And then, like, she just, like, showed off her power. I was like, man, did you not have, like, a better line? Could you...
Or at least use, like, the full name.
Well, yeah, like, my name is Carol Danvers. That would have been a lot better. But I think it's just because there's so many memes about, like, people named Carol or something. And it's, like, it's an older name and stuff. Like, it just sounded funny. Like, my name is Carol. Probably the least intimidating line ever muttered. Like, just add your last name on there. I don't know. I was just watching it. And I was like, oh, that's so funny. Because I was totally joking. Because I was like, my name is Carol. And I don't know. I just... Little things like that amuse me. But anything else you want to say about Captain Marvel?
No, I think that's it.
All right.
We both got our soapbox in.
What'd you think of... Yeah, we both got our soapbox in. You got your Nick Fury eye patch, and I got... my name is Carol. What'd you think about the Avengers being named after her?
I don't know. It's kind of weird. I wasn't expecting that. That was kind of random, to be honest.
Yeah, once we watched it, and we got to that scene, I suddenly remembered having heard about that, and I remembered other people being ticked off by it.
Yeah. I feel like there's, like, I don't know, more important characters that the Avengers could have been named after than her. Like, I don't know, she seemed, not that she's not, like a cool character, I just think, like, she's a little more insignificant than other ones that are in the Marvel Universe, so I would think that maybe they would name it after someone who's a little more prevalent than her, but... Yeah,
and to be fair, at the time, this is in 1995, so this is, like, 13 years before they find Iron Man or anything. So, and this is also Nick Fury's like first interaction with all this extraterrestrial stuff, with everything beyond, because at the beginning of this movie, he's like just like this, you know, guy walking around, he's like, you're under arrest, and he just doesn't believe her when she talks about stuff.
Yeah.
And so now he's been to space. He just saw this chick like flying through spaceships and stuff. So I could see why maybe he's like, this girl's pretty awesome. I just thought it was kind of lame how they're like, ooh, like you like zoom in on the picture and it says like Carol the Avenger Danvers, and it's like Avengers, and I was like, okay. I mean, it's like one of those things. Like it's one of those movies where you haven't seen this yet because we haven't watched Star Wars yet. We'll get to them eventually. Right now we're getting through the MCU, then we'll go to Star Wars. You haven't seen the movie Solo.
Yeah.
But a big issue people had with the movie Solo is that it's a prequel about Han Solo. It's a prequel to the Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
And it just goes out of its way to explain every aspect about Han Solo that nobody ever asked about. Right? So, like, where did he get his gun from? Why is he called Han Solo? Like, where did he meet Chewbacca? Like, all these questions that people didn't really care about, it went out of its way to answer. Whereas it would have been better to just leave it a mystery so that people could speculate. I feel like Captain Marvel did that a little bit. They're like, how did Nick Fury get his eye patch? Well, we thought we wanted to know. Turns out we didn't want to know because that was really lame. Right? And then it's like, why are the Avengers called the Avengers? I don't know. I thought it was like some epic thing. Oh, it turns out he just zoomed in on a picture. He was like, that'll work. Yeah. And then like it took him 13 years to find anybody who was like slightly cool. And he was like, hey, Tony Stark, you want to join the club? How many people are in the club? Just me so far. How long has it been active? 13 years. Okay. Sure. You know? So it's like there's so many things where I was like, just leave it a mystery. But overall, really good movie. I did enjoy it. Enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would.
Agreed.
And we'll see now, I guess, how you like Ant-Man and the Wasp.
I'm so excited.
We'll see if it can live up to the hype of the first Ant-Man, because I know you really liked that one. So, yeah, anything else you want to say?
That's it.
All right, cool. Well, I am David.
And I'm Brienne.
And this is Now Let's Be Honest About Movies. We will see you next time.